Hello, everyone. Welcome to William and the Magic Box. Today on our show, we are going to have Byron. Byron is from Miami in the USA. So let's see what Byron has to say. Enjoy the interview. So, hello, Byron. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Very well. Thanks so much for taking the time today for the interview. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I love your beard.
I'm actually at 1 o'clock today. I'm going to get a haircut and I'll probably trim the beard down a little bit. Um, Try to keep it sane.
You always had long beards?
No, it's funny. Last year, I was dating a guy who he's Filipino and German, and he can't grow a beard really, but he loves big beard. So I was like, I will grow a big beard for you, and that's what I did. So I grew it
Wow.
out for him, and I've kept it, even though he didn't keep me, but that's okay.
And tell me where you're from, Byron.
I grew up in Homestead, Florida, about 25 miles south of Miami, downtown.
See? And that's the place where you're based right now?
Yeah, I actually moved back down there uh, back last June. My father, he's about 80 years old now, and I was just noticing he needed maybe someone to sort of live with him and look after him. My stepmother's already in assisted care, so he was living alone.
I see. And do you have siblings as well?
I do. I have a stepsister who also lives in Homestead. I have a brother that lives up in North Carolina, and two stepbrothers that both live in Central Florida.
I see. Besides the good weather in Florida, what's the best part of being from Florida, in your opinion? Live in Florida.
Well, certainly the things that I liked about growing up here was that it was a very diverse community. You had Cuban Americans, Puerto Rican, Latin American. You had a lot of people from, say, the Philippines and Asia, especially in Homestead, growing up on a military base area, and just kind of the diversity that brings. You know, uh, I mean, obviously, I'm a white guy from Irish background, and I grew up eating Cuban food and Haitian food and soul food and all kinds of just amazing things and having amazing friends. That's probably the thing I love the most is just the exposure to everything that you get in a really large community like we have down here. Certainly, the fact that we're close to the ocean is nice. Although I get seasick, so that's kind of a limitation. I used to be a scuba diver, and I loved scuba diving when I could do that. Um, so, I mean, there's just so much to do here. Things have certainly become challenging in Florida in the last couple of years. It's become extremely expensive to live here. The political situation is deteriorating, as I will describe it, and leave it at that. So there's certainly some things that are making me question whether this is the right place for me to stay. Um, and probably once I'm done with my family obligations, I'm thinking of moving to California.
I see. And have you ever lived in another state in the US or abroad or not?
So I lived in Atlanta for a couple of years when I was growing up as a kid. I liked Atlanta. I do like Georgia. It has some of the same issues that Florida has these days, although it's not nearly as expensive to live there. Um, but certainly, I haven't lived in enough places. Let's put it this way. Kind of my ideal goal would be to have a little place in Provincetown, up in the Northeast, a little place in Palm Springs, and just go back and forth throughout the year, sort of live a couple months here, a couple months there. Um, Fortunately, I work for a wonderful company. The company's gone 100% remote, and they're staying remote, and so I can live and work anywhere I want, and it doesn't matter to the company. I'm spending a month in September. I'm going to be backpacking around Europe, and other than the days I'm traveling, a lot of the work days I'm just going to work remote, and everything will be exactly the same, except I get to do it in Europe. So
Amazing. Let me know when you are in London if you pass by.
I'll be in London, probably around September 13th, I think.
Byron, tell me, what do you do for work, for living?
So I am a software engineer. I won't mention the specific company I work for, but I've been working in software for decades now. The company I work for, it's a wonderful company. It's actually one of the oldest in the world. They started in the 1400s as monks writing textbooks, and now they write software to educate people. And it's a very forward-thinking company. You know, they're always looking for how to modernize and stay at the very forefront of technology. And you know, that was part of it. When COVID happened, they decided to sort of lean all in on going 100% remote, closing down office buildings, and it's a wonderful place to work. And I've been very happy. They have a really nice, friendly culture. So yeah, I've been doing software forever, and just super happy with it.
Actually, last night on the Magic Box, I had it went live interview with a lovely engineer from California, and also he works remote. He works software, but he works in I think a China company. He couldn't say the name either, but it's very similar to your job for sure.
Yeah.
Byron, before we start our journey within the Magic Box, I would like to tell me something interesting about yourself.
Something interesting about myself. I I am full of titanium. I've had a bunch of different surgeries and replacement parts, so I have titanium parts from my feet down to my head, all over the place. And it was interesting. I was a week ago. I was flying back from Las Vegas. I went out for a concert, and they must have had their scanner set to like the most sensitive settings. And I don't know if you've ever been to the scanner. There's like this little box that shows you your body and shows you all the things that they think are suspicious. It was just covered. Every single spot in my body where I had titanium was lighting up as a danger zone. So I got patted down and checked all over. And it's interesting because most people, if you look at me, you don't think I'm full of titanium, but I am.
Wow. Interesting. Am I saying your name right, Byron?
Yes, you are. Which, you know, it's funny. In the US, it is very uncommon to find people who know how to pronounce my name. The name actually has its basis in French and Middle English. So it's kind of an archaic name that you don't hear very often. I did find over in the UK, people seem to be more familiar with it than they are here in the US. Here, people usually think I'm Brian or come up with some weird bastardization of my name. But
Byron, actually, it's familiar for me, the name Byron, and I'm originally from Brazil, so my first language is Portuguese. And if I would read your name without knowing English, I would say the same as well. I would say Byron. Yeah.
Okay. Is it in Spanish? The Spanish translation, I think, is Byron.
I was about to say
B-I-R-O-N.
that. I was about to say that, or maybe I would say Byron as well. I would say Byron because for us, Y is the sound of E. Yeah. So Byron. Cool.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go on a beautiful journey through your memories in life and to share your point of views?
Sure.
Amazing. Welcome to William and the Magic Box. So this is my best. Okay, full of random questions. I'm just going to play a song now just for us to relax a bit before the first question. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, Byron, before we start the game, during the journey, if it comes up a question that you don't want to talk about for some reason, you don't want to answer, always can change, okay?
Okay.
First question for you is, which book had a big influence on you?
Probably, I mean, I've read so many books. I would have to put the top one would be The Power of Myth. It was just talking about mythology and how it influences culture and you know, our perception of the world, and you know, just the interesting ways that mythology throughout history has influenced things. And it's interesting. I literally just before this interview, I was reading about this Japanese anime movie called Spirited Away, which I haven't seen Spirited Away, but I was reading about the background, and the entire plot of the movie is based on ancient Japanese mythology, and like all the characters and stuff are like brought together from different Japanese mythology. And it's just interesting how how myth sort of pulls together so much of our cultural references and so forth.
Are you reading any book right now, like on your bedside?
The funny thing about it, the last time I checked, including all the digital books I own over 20,000 books. I forget the word. The Japanese actually have a word for someone who loves books and is constantly buying books and then never has time to read them, and just collects books and always wants to get around to it. There are a couple I need to read. I had just recently started on the story of Don Quixote, Men of La Mancha. But it's interesting because there are several different, the original book, of course, was written in Spanish, and not just any Spanish, it's fairly old Spanish. I mean, the book is from like the 1600s, if I remember correctly. And there have been translations of it, but not, there's debate about how good the translations are. And to be honest, my Spanish is not strong enough that I could read the entire book in Spanish and fully grasp it. So I've actually been looking at different translations and looking at reviews on it. So once I settle down on a translation of Don Quixote that I want and think is like going to be the most accurate, true to the original, then I'm going to tackle that. I've been wanting to tackle all of the sort of the great historical books like that. And quite frankly, Don Quixote is one that, especially in the United States, where most of the students are English speaking, is not going to be a common thing for students to read in high school, for example. And but I've always been fascinated by that one because I saw, I guess it was on television years ago, the play Men of La Mancha. So that's kind of where that came from. So that's my next to do on my book list.
Great. Out of 20,000, 2,000?
20,000 something. I mean, a lot of those are like technical books and a lot of it's science fiction, but yeah, I've got so much to read. And now I could read for a lifetime just with what I own now. So
Next one, let's do it. Next question is, if you met someone sad in the street, what would be your approach or your advice to this person?
It's interesting because I'm certainly someone who deals with depression, and luckily I'm not dealing with it right now, but I have certainly in the past. I think I've actually approached that the wrong way for a long time. When I found someone was depressed, it's like I want to solve it, I want to fix it, I want to help. But the thing is, sometimes if you're like, well, tell me what's wrong and let me help you fix it, that doesn't always work with sadness. So the approach that I would take these days, having sort of learned, is listen. Tell me what's wrong, tell me what's going on, but not necessarily to find the solution for them, because quite frankly, a lot of times they're the only one that can find the solution. And sometimes people just need to have someone listen to know that they're not invisible. So that's kind of how I would approach it, to listen, just to be there.
Totally. And sometimes, as you said, I totally understand, believe as well. Sometimes they just want to be spotted somehow. They just want someone to make them visible. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That there's some there, that maybe they just need a company, or just look at someone and say, oh, this person is giving some time for me somehow. I think that's what I believe as well.
Yeah.
Ready for another one?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Next question. Before the next one, tell me what you like the most about your job. What's the best joy of it? And the flip side, what's something that's very challenging?
So the thing that I enjoy the most about my job is the work culture. I've worked at a lot of different places. I've worked at places that were extremely toxic work cultures, where every day just it drained your energy to work at those places, dealing with people and cultures that were very unpleasant. The thing that I like so much about the place I work now is it is very much ingrained in our culture that we're nice to one another. I've never heard anyone yelling at each other. I've never heard people getting angry at each other. When we face challenges, We face them together. We work through mistakes together without looking to blame people. And honestly, I've never had a day at my job, even when I've had very long days. I've had days that were like 18, 20 hours where we were dealing with emergencies, but I didn't feel emotionally drained from those days. I might be tired,
Mhm.
but I never felt like just so emotionally drained that I didn't want to go back the next day. And I'm really happy about that. Um, and what was the second part of the question?
The most challenging part.
The most challenging part. So certainly the most challenging part of my job is, and it's not unique to my company, is when you work in information technology, about half of the information, about half the knowledge that you have becomes useless after about 5 years. It's like every 5 years, you have to learn, like 50% of what you know becomes irrelevant, and you've got to learn new things to stay up and stay current. Um, Years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a doctor, and obviously he went through a great deal of training for his job, and was kind of dismissive of the amount of training involved in my field in IT. And I explained to him, I'm like, imagine that 50% of the human anatomy changed every 5 years. And you were constantly having to relearn the human body all over again, because if you waited 5 or 10 years, all of a sudden everything you knew becomes irrelevant. And that's how my job is, constantly learning new things. And, you know, there's at least three different things that I'm learning just right now, to stay current. And, that huge list of books that I've got, a lot of that is because anytime some new technology comes out, that looks like it's going to be relevant, I'll go buy the book, find the best book for it, start learning it. And I may not learn everything. I may not read the book in its entirety, but I learn enough to at least know about it, so that at some point, if it's relevant, I can use it again. The analogy I would give: years ago, a reporter was interviewing Albert Einstein in his office. And his office is full of all these books, of course. Every book on physics that you could find was in his office. And the reporter asked him, I said, have you read and learned all these books? And Einstein replied, why would I learn all of these books when I can just pick them up when I need them? And it's like, and he did the same thing that I do now, because I literally learned it from Albert Einstein. He said, when I get a new book, I will skim through it. I will try to pick up the important things, but I won't memorize the whole book. I'll learn enough that I know where, if I need to go back to that book, I can go back to it in the future. And so that's what I do in my field. I'm constantly learning new things, but I won't necessarily become an expert in them until I need to.
All right. Next question for you is, if I would ask your best friend right now to define yourself in a positive words and a negative words, what your best friend would say?
Good question. Assuming my best friends know me really, really well, they would say he's a kind person who has his flaws, who deals with depression and anxiety, but most of the time is just an incredibly fun person to be around.
All right. Next question. Let's do it. All right. Byron from Miami in the USA. Next question is, what's your spirit animal?
My spirit animal. I am going to say a blue parakeet.
Tell me why.
I had a parakeet when I was a kid. I got her when I was maybe about 10 years old, or maybe even younger. I may have been like 8 years old when we got the parakeet, and she lived for a very long time. So lived for about 9 years, and would always fly around, and taught her how to land on my hands and all this stuff. And I mean, it's just a tiny little animal, but it seemed to have so much personality to it. And especially at that time in my life, it was really nice, just having a parakeet as part of my life. It was really sweet. So I'm going to go with a parakeet. And it was a blue turquoise color, which turquoise is my favorite color. So.
Wow. And how was growing up as a gay boy in Miami?
Not easy. Growing up, my parents decided that I would attend a fundamentalist Southern Baptist church-based school, and so that's the school that I went to. Um, I was one of those little gay kids who couldn't hide the fact that they were gay. Um, I mean, some kids can hide it. I couldn't hide it. I mean, I wasn't flamboyant or anything, but I didn't like to get dirty. I didn't like a lot of the stuff that the other boys like to do. Um, my dad taught me all the butch kind of things, and my mom taught me the feminine things. So, I know how to fix a carburetor, and I know how to do sewing, and I've got all the tools to work on a car, and I own 4 sewing machines last time I checked. Um, so yeah, there's plenty there. But certainly I couldn't hide it, and hiding it, not being able to hide the fact that you're gay at a Southern Baptist school is tough. Combine that with the fact that I had a severe speech impediment as a child, kind of only made that worse. And it wasn't just the students, unfortunately, it was the teachers too. I had one teacher who thought that I was learning disabled when I came into her class. And it wasn't until the standardized tests were done at the end of the year that she finally admitted the fact that I wasn't learning disabled. It was just frustrating dealing with her. But yeah, it was not easy being the little gay kid. But like a lot of us, had to learn how to survive that.
See. Okay. Next question. Let's do it. Next question for you is, tell us about your best vacation and why you consider that.
Best vacation. Oh God, that is a tough one. So I'm gonna say my best vacation is also kind of a bittersweet one. Last year, I went to Burning Man out in Nevada in the desert. 10 days out in the desert in Nevada with friends. I was out there with my boyfriend at the time. It was very physically challenging. You're out in 100-degree heat. It's dry. There's sandstorms, multiple sandstorms every day. Very physically challenging. But it was just this amazing spiritual event for me, and I really loved it. When Burning Man was over, I went to Palm Springs and spent another week there with my boyfriend at the time, and just had an amazing visit. So yeah.
It's something that's come to my mind now. I had a few guests on the show from Palm Springs, and of course also from Miami as well. There is any difference like between Miami and Palm Springs, or it's kind of very similar?
So it's interesting. There's a couple cities where like all the gay guys congregate, but we also vacation back and forth between them. So Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and really Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach are all one area. It's just one giant metropolitan area. So you've got, that Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. You've got Palm Springs, LA. You've got New York, and then you've got like Provincetown and Seattle and places like that, where kind of all the gay guys hang out. And we all vacation back and forth amongst them. So we all have friends in all of those places. I'm actually, like I said, thinking of moving out to Palm Springs once I no longer have family obligations here. And I already have a bunch of friends out there. I'm actually going out to Palm Springs this Tuesday, the 23rd. So I'll be out there for a week to see friends out there. So
3 questions left for you. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. Can wait for the future to do William the Magic Box World Tour and visit all those places.
Yep.
Next question is, what is the most difficult thing have you ever done?
Most difficult thing I've ever done? So probably it was just to survive. Back around 2005, I sprained my ankle and I went to the emergency room to get it checked out. And if you've ever been to the hospital, the emergency room, the first thing they do is they check your blood pressure. And I did not know it at the time, but the blood pressure cuff that they used had not been cleaned properly, and it had a bacteria on it called MRSA. Um, MRSA, it's staph bacteria. And I spent the next 2 years in and out of the hospital, 15 surgeries, literally millions of dollars in medication to fight this infection that I got at the hospital. And even today, I still suffer, from the the side effects of the medication. The medication caused me to have memory issues, and even today, even now, I still have trouble remembering things that I didn't before that happened. So, and I mean, the doctors literally almost killed me twice during treatment, accidentally overdosing me on medications and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that was probably the most challenging thing I did, those 2 years dealing with that.
Through those challenging, moments that you face for 2 years, when you think about it, is there any positive thing that you've got out of that journey?
There was, sometimes you don't know what you're capable of handling until you've actually had to handle it. I learned that I can handle really tough situations, as long as I sort of stay calm and stay focused on getting through whatever I've got to get through, and just surviving when just surviving is what you need to do. And I learned I could deal with it, and that was a good thing.
Amazing. Good. 2 questions left. Let's do it. Before the next question, when I was checking your profile a little bit, I could see there that you're involved with photography and modeling as well. It's something that you can talk about?
Sure, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about the journey.
So I loved photography, even as a child, especially art photography, and just sort of the beauty that all of these different photographers have been able to capture in images over the last century. And so I got into it, first just by myself without any classes. When I got to college, I took art classes and photography classes, and got good at it. I learned how to develop photos, back in the days when we were still using chemical-based photography. So I knew how to develop film and actually print photos in a dark room and stuff like that. And it was great fun to do that. I like doing candid photography. It was funny though, during that college time, we had this experience that happened where one of the assignments was to find someone on campus, like another student or someone, and ask them to model for us, to do some like portrait photos, nothing special, just get in front of a camera and take some photos of them. And there was this one girl that worked at the gym on campus, very beautiful. I don't know what her ethnicity was. It doesn't matter. She had sort of this dark chocolate colored skin is the best way to describe it. She was very beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I asked her if she would be willing to model for me for my photography class. And she just gave me the strangest look, like I had just asked the most horrific thing. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's a no. And I didn't think any more of it. And then a couple days later, I get called into the dean's office on campus, and she has accused me of sexual harassment for asking this question. So, I explained to the dean. I said, it wasn't anything sexual. I was just asking her if she would model for a photo class. And we called up my professor. My professor came over to the meeting and was like, yes, the assignment is find someone on campus to photograph, just to bring into the studio and do some photography. And plus, I told him, I said, plus I'm gay, so it's not like I was hitting on her. Yeah, but the whole thing just left such an unpleasant feeling for me that I never photographed people for many years after that. It was just, I would do landscape, I would do animals, I would do architecture. I did not do people. And then so something happened for myself, which is around 2014. I went to the doctor's office and I found out that I was a diabetic. I was not in good physically. I was not in good shape at the time, and the doctor was like, "If you lose weight, get down to your ideal weight, exercise, and all that stuff, you won't be a diabetic anymore." So I started working out at the gym, started eating right. I lost about 100 pounds, and I got in good shape. And I stopped being a diabetic. I haven't needed medication in about 5 years now. And so part of the one of the goals I set was that when I get in good shape, I'm going to find a friend who's a photographer and do some modeling. Have some photos taken of myself. And I did that, and I was happy with it. And this was like around the time Facebook was, getting popular, and the photos were on Facebook, and then other photographers started reaching out to me asking if I would model, and so I started doing that. Plenty of the photographers wanted me to do like full body, nude photography, and I love the human body, so I was happy to do that. And so, I've just done a lot of different modeling. I model for art classes these days. If they want someone to sit and they can, draw, I'm happy with that. And I also got back into the photography of people. And so I enjoy doing that. COVID kind of put a monkey wrench in that, because for a long time you couldn't really do model photography in a studio, but I'm getting back into that as well.
Amazing. Wow, I love this story. I thought you when you I thought you'd say when they call you back, you know what I mean, the office, because of when you approached that the lady. I thought you said afterwards, okay, but now I would like to do the photography with you. I thought
Yeah.
you'd say that. Anyway, next question is, what do you like the most about yourself?
The thing I like the most about myself, and it's this thing I look for in other people, is that I try to be nice and kind to people. My personal philosophy of life is I want to live in a world where people are nice and kind to each other, where everyone looks out for each other, and a world where when people are suffering, we help them. But part of that philosophy is that I don't actually deserve to live in that world until I help to create it. So I try to create that world that I want to live in.
Amazing. Ready for the last one?
Yep.
Last question. Let's do it, Byron. But before the last question, you touched twice during the interview regarding depression. Yeah, that you went through in the past. Your friends would spot that on you. People watching the interview right now, maybe they are trapped, in a situation of depression, or maybe they are feeling depressed for some reason. They are not looking for help. They don't know what to do, or they are kind of lost. What would be your best piece of advice for those people?
So my best piece of advice for people, and it's not an easy thing to do, which is that unfortunately you cannot depend on other people to help you to deal with your depression. But you also do need other people to deal with it. So it's kind of this balance where you can't depend on people, but you do need people. So I think it's important, if you've got depression, to reach out to your friends, reach out to counselors, reach out to a psychiatrist if you need medication, find peer counseling and stuff like that. But it's always important to remember that you're not helpless, and that ultimately the one person in your life who has the most power to help you is yourself. That you can find the strength in yourself to heal. And whether you combine that with medication or counseling, therapy, or whatever, those are all important things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to making a decision for yourself that you're going to find the strength within you to work through those issues and to get better.
Beautiful. Thank you. Next question is, what is the weirdest food combination have you ever tried?
Weirdest food combination. I think I was at a friend's house, and I don't know, it was late at night. They were making pizzas, pizza in the oven, and someone had the idea to put marshmallows on a pizza, like marshmallows,
Yeah.
like a regular pizza with like tomato sauce and cheese and everything. And they put marshmallows.
Ooh.
It was a bit of a mess. However, I do think that if you took a pizza crust and covered it with like cinnamon and butter and stuff like that, and then put marshmallows on it and then sort of cooked it that way, you might actually come up with something that tastes good. But marshmallows and tomato sauce do not mix. And cheese, no, it was a mess. Yeah.
Back in Brazil, we are quite popular to sweet pizza, actually, as dessert pizza. They do like that with marshmallows, but just, not mixed with savory.
Yeah.
Chocolate pizza as well, which are quite popular.
Nice.
Right, it's not the end yet. Let's play now the word association game, okay? I'm going to give away some words. Just one word that comes to your mind. Quick thinking. So, I hope you are enjoying the interview. Before we do the word association game, don't forget to give a like, don't forget to share this video, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Just click on the button right there. Thank you so much and enjoy the word association game. Let's start with money.
Fear.
Family.
Love.
And one word for love.
Another word for love. Connection.
Life.
Temporary.
Sex.
I've already used connection, so I'm going to go with contentment.
Politics.
Danger.
Religion.
Danger.
I knew you'd say that. Fear.
Sadness.
Friendship.
Love.
Desire.
Longing.
Regret.
Sadness.
Success.
A goal.
Wish.
A dream.
Happiness.
Peaceful.
One word for Miami.
Dancing.
One word for USA.
Complicated.
One word for photography.
Immortality.
Interesting. And the last one now, software engineer, one word.
Ever-changing.
Great. Let's pretend I'm going to meet your best friend for a coffee, yeah? And I'm going to ask your best friend, what's the most beautiful thing about Byron, yeah? And what's something that he still needs to work on, to improve on? What your best friend would say?
That probably the best thing is that I help others and look after them. Things that I need to improve about myself, my insecurities.
You see some work in progress regarding that?
Very much so.
We are in work progress, all of us.
Yeah.
Let's play now Byron and the Magic Box, and you can ask me a question. Okay, but before you ask him the question, as you say that you know some Spanish, yeah? Tell me what's your...
Muy poco.
Muy poco. Okay, so tell me what's your favorite Spanish word?
Funny enough, it's a word that I can't even pronounce properly. So it's the Spanish word for stepmother, madrastre, which...
Okay, in Portuguese we say madrasta.
Yeah, and so here's the thing: when I was a kid, I had a really bad speech impediment, and there's certain sound combinations, like the rolled R and the rolled L that are very common in Spanish and Portuguese. Portuguese has even more phonemes that I can't pronounce. And I can't get my mouth to move. Like a rolled L, a rolled R. My stepmother was constantly trying to get me to learn how to say that, and I never could. So when it comes to Spanish, when I do speak Spanish, what little I can, I sound very much like an American.
Okay, so I'm gonna teach you now. As you say about madrasta, yeah, it's a stepmother. I'm gonna teach you now stepfather. You know how to
Okay.
say stepfather in Portuguese? It's very similar to padrasto.
Padrastro.
Padrasto, because pai is father, yeah. So
Yeah.
padrasto, so it's not pai, padrasto.
Padrastro.
Padrasto, yeah, and you say mother, mom, yeah, so madrasta, padrasto, madrasta. My God, I haven't
Okay.
said those words for so long.
Well, that's the thing. They're fairly uncommon. Yeah, I mean, one of the things about Spanish that I had so much trouble with, and still to this day, is assigning gender to words that
Yeah,
where the gender isn't
yeah,
necessarily obvious. I mean, with those words, it's obvious, but like knowing that my refrigerator is a female, I'm like,
yeah, yeah. In Portuguese as well. Portuguese, refrigerator, yeah, it's female as well. Geladeira, you say.
yeah. Well, because the thing is that when I was in high school, I helped organize the very first language class for Russian not just at my high school, but in all of Miami. It was the very first Russian language class. And I was doing really well with Russian because Russian actually doesn't use any sounds that are all that different from English. It's a Germanic language. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but about halfway through the year, our teacher had a heart attack and had to retire. He survived, but he had to retire. And so they took half of our class and stuck us in German, and the other half they stuck us in Spanish class in the middle of the year. And so I got shoved over into a Spanish class. But you're trying to catch up with the language that you haven't been studying, and then the teacher got mad at me because one day I was like, I've never seen a refrigerator have babies, so I don't know that refrigerator is female. She was not happy. I think I got a C. I got a C in Spanish. So
They do actually refrigerate. They do have babies. They get ice out of it.
there you go. I guess that's it. And I took Spanish again when I got to college at FIU. But the problem in Miami is when you go to like a Spanish, especially Spanish class
Yeah.
in college, it's supposed to be a beginner's class, but 95% of the people in there already speak fluent Spanish at home. It's their first language, and they go there because it's an easy A. But the problem is for the 5% of us that actually don't know Spanish, we're kind of at a disadvantage because we're actually having to learn this stuff, whereas all the other kids are all getting straight A's. So.
You can ask me a question now, Byron.
Okay, so it's funny because you had asked me to look up a question, and I've been thinking of one, and I came up with it this morning, actually. What is the very first song that you learned how to sing as a child? Do you still remember it?
Oh my God, beautiful question. Tonight, I'm gonna reach 900 interviews on the show so far, yeah? And nobody asked this question yet.
Awesome.
Amazing. Okay, back to my childhood now. I love, there's a Brazilian entertainer called Xuxa. All South America knows her, and Spain as well. She's a big star in the 80s, 90s for kids. And
I've heard of her, yeah.
Yes, los bajitos, as they say in Spanish. Anyway, so all her songs for me was like, it was like daily songs every morning. This Barbie was come, the Starship, every morning, and with all those amazing songs for kids. Okay, I'm just gonna get one of hers. Let me see, one of the first songs that I've learned from her. Okay, there is one that's in English. The translator would say you need to be a champion. You need to be a champion. It's like it's like willpower music that it takes you to go after your dreams, to go, never give up. And as a child, actually, it's one of my favorite songs because as a child, I listen to it. Yeah, like I love this song. It's about you need to be champion. Yeah, tem que ser campeão. That we would say in Portuguese. You need to be a champion. And when I remember singing that song, I just felt like, my goodness, I want to be a champion one day. I want to, to go after my dreams. So it's a song that's one of the first one I've learned. And at the same time, it was very inspiring because I grew up playing volleyball, a lot. For years and years, I was playing volleyball. And this song always stuck to me because I wanted to be champion all the time. So, nice. Campeão, the name of the song is Campeão, which means champion. So yes, that's one of the very first songs that I've learned how to sing. Yeah, and it was very inspired as well. Nice. That's the song. That's one of the first one that I've learned how to sing, how to be champion. You need to be a champion. Good. And I'm glad as well you said that you know her. Amazing, Xuxa. Wow.
Yeah.
Byron, did you have a good time?
I did. Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking the time for the interview. Thanks for being so open and so kind as well. But before you go, if you can share a positive message or something that you live by.
So I would say that we are all flawed and that is still beautiful.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for the interview. It was a pleasure and keep in touch, okay? Enjoy your day.
Take
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, did you like the show? Don't forget to give a like, to share it, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to be part of the show as well, first, subscribe to our channel, and after that, just go to our website, www.williamandthemagicbox.com, and send us a request saying why would you like to be part of the show. And I see you there. Bye-bye. See you next time.